Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is kiodiekin. I thought about doing the video, so I figured I'd just jump on here. I know it's late at night, so thank you guys for those of you who could jump on here at the last minute. But if you guys have watched my public Facebook page and you follow me in some of my groups, you know I kind of had a little outburst last night in regards to some of the system specs and what Arcade1up uses in their cabinets. And so I've been following them. I have a few cabs, since 2018. And before I actually get into that, I want to give you guys a little story. So back in 2011, I want to say it was back in 2011, maybe 2012. Some buddies of mine were running a tournament for Marvel versus Capcom 3 at a local place. I can't remember exactly where it was. And so, I felt I was up on top of my game and everything. It was Marvel versus Capcom 3. Felt I was really good with the combos. Now, the TV that I always use at the time was a 50-inch Samsung plasma TV. And this is very important. And so I got to the tournament and I was like, man, like I'm doing my moves, but everything, like my timing seems to be off. And I couldn't understand it. I had no idea why my timing, was off. And so Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is one of my favorite games. I'm familiar with the entire series, the hiccups, whatnot, but I'm also well aware of what it takes to emulate it. So, for example, I'm familiar with the Xbox 360 version. I got rid of the Xbox version because it absolutely sucked. And of course, I'm also familiar with what it needs to take with Redream or Flycast on the Raspberry Pi 4. In fact, I was the first one to demonstrate it here on the channel when we had RetroPie working on the Pi 4. And so the tournament didn't do too well, and then I tried again. I was like, man, like, why are my combos so delayed? I go home, I can play it on my internet connection, but when I play with you guys, it's like I just absolutely suck. Like I just tear up the place. I mean, I can't connect anything. And so I talked to one of my buddies of mine, and so I took down the model number, and he said, "Well, these are the model numbers or monitors that they use in official tournaments." And a lot of these guys, my buddies, they've been to Evo back in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and stuff. And I was like, "Gee, man, this really sucks." And like, I'm glad I hadn't competed up until this point. And so I did my research. They told me that hey, these are the monitors. Hey, what's going on, Kong? They told me that, hey, these are the monitors that we use for tournaments. This is what they use professionally and everything. And I'm like, well, all right. So I go home and I go to Best Buy and I do all my research on every monitor I possibly could at the time. And come to find out, the reason why my inputs were delayed, or a lot of people may use this terminology in terms of lag input, was because I was accustomed to playing on my Samsung TV, a plasma TV, that has a 1 millisecond response time. And the TVs or the monitors, these are professional gaming monitors now, by the way. The average professional gaming monitor at that time had a response rate of somewhere between 5 or 4 milliseconds. And you could tell the difference in a fighting game. Now, you typically won't see this if you're playing Super Mario or something slow like Frogger. You won't see it if you're playing a beat 'em up game. It really doesn't matter, but typically you only see it in fighting games or if you're playing something that requires really quick inputs. And so at the time, the worst monitors that I saw was, let me see, I think the worst monitors I saw at that time when I was just kind of looking around at gaming monitors was let me go ahead and switch this off for a second. I want to switch this back over. Yeah, the worst monitors that I saw at that time that were typically on average for gaming monitors was anywhere between 8 to 10 milliseconds. I mean, the average was sometimes 2, some were 5, yeah, some were 4, and then of course you had some gaming monitors that were about 8 milliseconds in, response time delay. So I hadn't bothered to actually check any of the Arcade1up specs because it really never concerned to me that, hey, this is just, a miniature size, Again, I have the Street Fighter cabinet, I have Final Fight, I have Mortal Kombat, the first one that came out, and none of those games really matter in terms of millisecond response time because they're slower games. I mean, you really don't need them for that kind of stuff. But you will see it usually maybe with online. But at the same time, Marvel versus Capcom series, especially Marvel versus Capcom 2, are the fastest games. I think I still think Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and actually, yeah, it has more sprites and action than Marvel vs. Capcom 3. It's the fastest game you can possibly run, and it's the hardest game that you can get to emulate, especially on a single board computer type interface. And so I know Arcade1up, they said that there was some lag delay or anything, but I want to point out a few things to you guys because this was the model number that I was sent over. This is the model number. Here, let me go ahead and pull this up. The Arcade1up monitor. It is the DV170Y GZ-N10. And again, I didn't care to look up any of these specs for retro gaming. It doesn't really matter because typically you're playing landside and you really won't know the difference. If you're playing NBA Jam, which was their first online cabinet, you really won't notice it. But games like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, you will, because it is one of the fastest games around as far as button input and response time. And so I did some research, and come to find out, the BOE monitors, I looked up here. Let me see if I have it here because I got all my tabs saved from last night. Let's see here. I got it. No, not that one. But pretty much most of the monitors that Arcade1up has uh, in their units, even the one that's not this particular model, it starts with, what is it, the M17 model, but all of them range anywhere between 13 milliseconds to 100 millisecond delayed response time. This particular one here, the DV one, the one that I just showed you, has a response time of 14 milliseconds. And if you guys aren't familiar with computer technology, that is atrocious for a fighting game. I'll probably post some links for those of you not familiar with millisecond response time and technology. But you always want to put at least. Now, when I first looked this up, I figured, well, maybe it'd be 5 milliseconds, which is what I've played on before with fighting game. But I'll tell you guys this: none of you have ever played on anything this high in terms of response time. You probably don't even have a TV in your house that has that. But I'm going to see if I can find it. So let's see here. I think this is. I know I posted the article last night here. Let me see if I could find it. For whatever reason, it just disappeared. I'm going to pull it up here. Nope, that's not it. And so some of you, in terms of, I think some of the other cabinets, people were asking as far as, audio delay. So here's what happens. You have a signal that's sending your video and audio at the same time. But because the monitor is slow to respond in terms of drawing out the images on the screen, you're not able to input your controls as fast enough or actually see it because it's still processing. If you guys are familiar with video cards, ray tracing, that all plays a part in terms of millisecond response time. The ideal goal is to have 0, but you're never going to find that. The only type of monitors you can find on the monitor, or actually on the market, are 1 millisecond. So that is the ideal goal. Let's see here. All right, so here it is here. This is, I think this is it right here. I think this is it. Conga saying, I think they will fix any of the initial lag input issues with monitor sync through software updates. Al Lewis, just as an example, if you replace the old Dell monitor into an Arcade1up, you will not consistently be able to do any infinites. I tried a lot. Yeah, exactly. It's very subtle. Now, here's the bigger part of the picture. if you're used to playing on an Arcade1up or something really slow, you'll be fine. If you're new to the whole Marvel vs. Capcom 2 series, Marvel vs. Capcom, you're going to do absolutely fine. The diehards, or people who are used to playing on CRTs, or if you're playing on LCD TVs, or if you're familiar with Dreamcast, you're going to have a problem trying to adapt. And I don't know how long it's going to take you to adapt, but this is a serious concern because even in just gaming, I have not seen, where the hell is it? I've had this thing last night, had everything planned out here, and I want you guys to actually see it because I think it's in here. All right, so here it is right here. So DV170YGM, it's actually GZ. I looked these up. I believe these are brother and sister monitors. I tried to look up GZ, but it has a slash next to it, which means it's either or dash N10. So this is the monitor that they're using for Arcade1up, and it has a response time of 14 milliseconds. 14 milliseconds. Again, I have not seen anything this low for gaming in 10 years. Now, keep in mind, if you're playing Frogger, Donkey Kong, Ninja Turtles, something where like a beat 'em up game, you're not gonna really see it, and it's not gonna really matter. But this is the fastest fight game around, and you're putting something as atrocious as this inside of this gaming monitor. Now, I know Kong is saying that they're going to try to fix some things as software updates, but they really have their work cut out for them, because I know a lot of people have been referring to this as lag input, and there's a difference between lag input versus a delayed response time for your monitor. Uh, that's why most gaming monitors now, they don't even, it used to be maybe 5 or 4, but now that's why now they go with 1 millisecond. But this is something you definitely don't want to see, especially for a game of this caliber. But your timing is going to be off, so unless they pull out a miracle here by, let's see, what, the end of September, we say what, pre-orders are going up September 8th, September 9th, and then 3 weeks after that they ship out. They got their work cut out for them, and I have no idea of any possible fix that'll really fix this of a game of this kind of magnitude. I've just never seen it done. This is a monumental task to get this right, possibly with this kind of delay, and try to fix it with software. And then, not just try to fix it, but you want to make sure it's perfected. So, for example, if you guys have watched some of my other videos in terms of emulation, you got to check everything, to make sure something is working, to make sure something is right. And even with a game like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, there's still combos people are still discovering within the game. And then, of course, I'm not, also keep in mind, the game already has a lot of glitches in there that was obviously made with the game. So that's going to be, on a normal circumstance. But I definitely want to find this other article that I had up here for you guys. Yeah, see, it's these monitors here, the DV1s, the Ds that I just showed you guys. But there's a difference between lag input versus millisecond response time when it comes to monitors. Because I've heard a few of the reviews, but everybody keeps saying it's lag delay. It's not lag delay. It's this millisecond response time. And this is what throws your timing off. But again, you're playing something basic like Street Fighter. I don't think you'll really pick it up too much. But with games like this, you'll definitely see it. Let's see here. This is somebody else using this for the LCD controller, Pi 4. This is the same company. They make a 500 hertz monitor, 1 millisecond. And don't get it confused. You do have gaming monitors out there that are 60 and 120 hertz that are 1 millisecond. My plasma TV was 1 millisecond and it was 60 hertz. So it doesn't have to be a particular hertz in order to equal to a 1 millisecond response time. That's actually false. So I know some of the other articles and tech reviews that I've seen saying, hey, hertz equals millisecond response time, and that's honestly not true, because you didn't even have anything up to 120 hertz when I got my TV back in 2008, which is when that TV was out. So Here is additionally the aforementioned video also reveals a said 500 hertz gaming monitor features a full HD 27 display panel that is equipped with 8-lane EDP connection and supports response time up to 1 millisecond long. Just to give you guys an idea. That has nothing to do with one of these monitors here. But in the gaming world and for fighting, that has a big difference. Now, I talked to one of my other buddies the other night, and he wasn't familiar with the whole millisecond response time, but he did notice that when he played his Mister for emulation versus maybe something else, um, that I think he was playing Sonic the Hedgehog or some other game, that he would always die. And he had no idea why he would play on one machine versus playing maybe his Mister, why his emulation or his timing was off, why he was always dying. But that all still boils down to millisecond response time. So let's go ahead and pull this up for a second. I want to show you guys an article. Let me go ahead and pull this back up here for a second. This was me playing at SoCal Expo a few years ago. So I think it's the last time I probably played the official arcade machine. And I'm just trying to pull up. So here's a good article that you guys could probably reference. I'll actually put this here in the chat a little bit later. Again, if you're not familiar with PC knowledge and tech specs, this plays a high important part in your gaming. This is why I always try to get the best technology if I'm gaming. But here's an article: input lag versus response time. Which should I prioritize for gaming? Now, keep in mind, there are articles that are much older than this. I mean, this goes back many years ago. So this has nothing to do with somebody trying to come against Arcade1up or say anything in regards to the work that they're doing. This is just tech knowledge at its best. You never want to have something slow in there, especially for a fighting game. Both high input lag and slow response time speed can ruin your gaming experience. Now, you notice there's a difference between the two. However, too high input lag can make it unbearable. So first, make sure your input lag performance of the display is acceptable, and then look for the fastest response time speed. While both input lag and response time are equally important for a fluid gaming experience, too high input lag can make competitive gaming unbearable. Luckily, most new gaming displays offer both low input lag and quick response time, so you won't have to compromise. Many people mistake response time for input lag. And this is exactly what you guys have probably seen or heard in some of the reviews, is that many people mistake response time for input lag when looking at the display's specifications. Now, I believe this article, and then also too, is true. No company will tell you what the input lag is on the monitor, but however, they'll always classify it or show what the MS response time is. In fact, if you guys look at ASUS monitors, it'll say like 1 MS, or if you guys go to Best Buy, it'll say, if you guys look at some of the older Best Buy TVs, like the regular Samsungs and stuff that they have on display, maybe a Dell, it'll probably say 2. And I know years ago when I used to try to pay attention to it, it would say either 2 or maybe 4, maybe 5. But I know a lot of those monitors have kind of been cleared out. To clarify, input lag is the delay between your screen and your commands, such as a press on the keyboard or a mouse. Response time, on the other hand, is the time pixels take to change from one color to another. And this could definitely kill you in a fighting game, because you could be sitting there pressing button after button after button, but your combos and your muscle memory is thrown off because there's a delay on the screen. A quick pixel response time speed is needed to eliminate ghosting, trailing behind fast-moving objects in fast-paced games. Now, based upon the stuff that I've seen so far, the images have looked great. They look kind of fluid and stuff, but honestly, you're not going to know until you play it. Just how fast the response time sends time and speed needs to be depends on the monitor's maximum refresh rate. A 60 hertz monitor, for instance, refreshes the image 60 times per second, milliseconds in between refreshes. So if a pixel takes longer than 16.67 milliseconds to change from one color to another on a 60 hertz display, you will notice ghosting. Now, you haven't really seen a lot of ghosting too much, and even the so-called gaming monitors I've seen, it wasn't so much of a ghosting, but you could definitely tell that there was a delay. Now, the specified pixel response time speed that monitor manufacturers quote, such as 1 millisecond or 4 milliseconds, refers to the display's fastest pixel transition possible from one shade of gray to another. Now, to kind of cut down on this on most of the TVs that you guys currently have, where you have a 50-inch, I have two 65-inch TVs and some 50-inch TVs. You guys are familiar with the gaming mode. Well, the gaming mode helps uh, transition or speed up the process of those images. That's why you started seeing TVs come out with gaming modes on them, is to fix this millisecond response time. Is not the average speed. Pixels take longer to change from black to white than vice versa. So even if all white to black pixel transitions are quoted below 4 milliseconds on a 144 hertz monitor, and I got several of those. For instance, some dark to light transitions still might take over 10 milliseconds. So the point that I'm trying to make to you guys who are maybe watching, or maybe you haven't heard, is this is a crappy monitor. In fact, this is like I've said, it's terrible, and I've never seen anybody use this for gaming. But I understand that Arcade1up is a toy company, but for competitive gaming, I don't know, they got a miracle to pull out, because I've never seen anybody try to play Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on this slow of specs. This is not 14 milliseconds. Even if you went to Best Buy and you got one of those $25 TVs on open box, is much faster than 14 milliseconds. It's probably like maybe 5. Back in the day, I think I got one of those Insignia TVs. Let me see if I can pull it up. I want to show you why you guys can see it for yourself. Let me pull Best Buy here. Pull up Best Buy, and we'll just do a brief search on some of the TVs that they have. Just switch back really quick. And just let's pull up an Insignia. And let me see if I have here. All right. I can't find it, but let me go to, let me see if I can pull it up on Target. I want you guys to see these specs. All right. I want you guys to see these specs for yourself. Let's pull up. Let me see here. I'm trying to find the specs on this thing. Hopefully they still list them. It's been a while since I've actually shopped for TV. Description, electronics, 60 hertz. Yeah, this is where they really get you. They don't tell you what the response time is on some of this stuff anymore. It just says 60 hertz. Okay. See if I can find it. Vizio. Let me pull up another TV. I'm going to find a crappy one. I want to find a real crappy TV. Let's just pull up LCD TV. No, well, this one might be a crappy one here. $300 for this? Yeah. May have to go to the Samsung website in a case like this. we're looking for MS response time. It'll say like 4 or 5 or maybe 1. But I know a lot of the TVs now, they actually started taking it off because they didn't want to advertise that. And they have you thinking that hertz equals milliseconds, but that's definitely not the case. I know Best Buy used to have it. Let's see if I pull up another website really quick. Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate it. We go to Insignia's website. Then let's look up television. Oh my God, you can't find anything these days, right? All right, let me see something here. Insignia LCD TV. Millisecond response time. Let's see here. All right, I'm trying to find a TV that has. Let's see. This one's black. 4 inputs. And just a question, I see there's 8 people watching. How many of you guys have actually known about millisecond response time when it comes to monitors? I'm just really curious because what I'm finding out, there's you have a lot of people in the, I would say, retro gaming community. They aren't familiar with a lot of specs and little doodads with PC stuff. All right, I can't find it. I can't find an Insignia TV or something that actually has it listed, but usually it was listed on the smaller ones, like maybe something like 25-inch, 32, something that was more or less used for gaming. Let me see if this 32-inch TV has it. This is kind of getting suspect here. They started removing this on here. .32-inch TV, 720p, and I can't find it. Let's see here. Doesn't have response time on here either, does it? Wow, that's unfortunate. Looks like all these manufacturers just started not putting it on there. But every TV that's been out, or every monitor, has something called millisecond response time, or it will just say MS. You still see it on gaming monitors, and then of course you'll see it here on the LCD panels. If I do find it, I'll post it on my social media where you can see some advertisements. But that's primarily what you want to look for. But if you guys weren't familiar with that, I'm just definitely wanted to point this out to you. But if you are a hardcore Marvel versus Capcom 2 fan, so unless Arcade1up pulls something out drastically, then this is a cause for concern for me. Now, my other thing is I was just going to pull out everything and put it into a bigger cabinet with a 27-inch monitor. That might cause me an issue because the monitor is bigger, and typically when you're working with emulation, and especially a game of this caliber, you want to leave everything as low as resolution as possible and let the TV upscale and do the rest of the work. So, for example, the reason why a lot of people couldn't get better optimization for Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on the Raspberry Pi is because everybody's defaulted settings for the Raspberry Pi is 1080p. So what I do is I take down my settings all the way down to 720p or something a little bit lower, and then I let the TV upscale it to 720p, or I'm sorry, upscale it to 780p, and then I'll go into the emulator and then have that display at 780p or change it down to a composite resolution, so that way it's not pulling so much power against the single board computer. Now, I'm not sure the specs that Arcade1up is using, but Marvel vs. Capcom 2 has never been known. We don't know. This is untested territory to run on a single board computer accurately. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't, but I've had it running at probably about 90 or 95 and percent. And the only time I had lag delay was when I would do the hyper crossover combo when all three characters would come out. I have a video on that. I think I have a video posted where I called all three characters out. And in fact, I would show you guys right now, but I think I have some ROMs transferring over. And that's going to take me a while because I'm testing out a new Supreme image. But yeah, when you're doing the hyper crossover combo, I was really hoping to see somebody do that because that would show you all the sprites and all the animations on the screen, and that would be the most physically demanding situation in a sense, while they were at Evo, so you can see exactly where they were. So, for example, if somebody pulled out all three characters and let's say they, picked certain characters that generate the most sprites when that happens, you would have seen the true performance of the cabinet. Just doing basic air combos and 1 versus 1 and calling out an assist, you wouldn't be able to see the true power or the true emulation of where they really are. Now, if there's lag delays, even just having a standard 1 versus 1 where there's two characters on the screen, that wouldn't be a true test as to where they are in terms of emulation, where they are right now. So let's see here. This is something else. No, that's somebody else. I don't even know why I can't find. Yeah, I think this is it here. But yeah, 14 milliseconds is atrocious, guys. That's nothing to. And I hope, and I'm surprised I haven't seen anybody really mention it. Is my understanding. Okay, here it is here. So you have Pick Insights. So you have both the LCD monitors. This is the DV170YGM. I honestly don't know what's the difference between these two because you have the GM and the GZ. But the alternative on some of the websites on the company website, they have the GZ model, which is the one Arcade1up is using as an alternative to the GM. Mystery Coder, this is being compared to the actual monitor. The monitor that they're using is 14 milliseconds. So this is not a pie comparison by any means, and we know they're using something custom, but this is in regards to the specs of the monitor. I told the whole story. You'll have to listen to it a little, at the end of the show. But yeah, but again, as I said, I've never seen a monitor uh, of this type with a 14 millisecond delay trying to run something pretty much one of the fastest games ever made. So we'll really have to wait and see what they do to try to correct some of this because that is a huge gap. And if you want to get an idea about what the delay is, try playing some fighting games on different TV monitors, and your muscle memory will tell you the difference. Yeah, mystery coders. So the story that I started off with is that you can definitely tell the difference in a fighting game between a 1 millisecond TV, which is what I've pretty much always played with, versus something that's 5 milliseconds. And back in 2011, the worst monitors that I've seen with the millisecond response time was about 8, maybe 10, but 8 milliseconds. And so, I had never really looked at the specs of Arcade1up in terms of what they use. I mean, whatever it is they're using is fine for retro gaming if you're playing Frogger or Ninja Turtles or whatever. But when it comes to, and even Street Fighter, I think you could definitely get away with it because it's a, 1-1-2 hit kind of game. Mortal Kombat, you do a move, kind of you freeze and pause when you jump in, you kick somebody, you're doing uppercut, it kind of freezes. I think the only other game that would be comparable, obviously, to Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or the speed type would be Marvel vs. Capcom. All the other games run much slower and don't generate as much sprites. But for a fighting game, and I've had my PC friends that I've even had on the channel, they didn't know that you can drastically tell the difference with a 1 millisecond monitor versus 5 second or 5 millisecond monitor. I was like, yeah, it's night and day. You can feel it. But 14 seconds, yeah, you're going to know it. Yeah, you trust me, guys. You play on a 1 millisecond monitor and you go with something 5 or a little bit higher now, if you're used to, and there's articles on this, trust me, if you guys want to look up millisecond response time and versus lag input, there are hundreds of articles, me going back many years ago, where people have commented. Now, if you are used to playing on something really slow, you are going to be fine. But however, you are not going to be okay playing on something that's really fast and then having to adapt to something like this. I have gaming monitors in my gaming room. If you guys have seen my setup, um, if you guys have seen my setup in my gaming room where I got like my 7 and 8 monitors, okay, well, 3 of those are Asus VG something, whatever it is, VG 250As, 1 millisecond, 144 hertz gaming monitors. I cannot play fighting games on that. I cannot play Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite on that. I try to switch back and forth because right now I'm sitting in front of my two 65-inch Samsung TVs. This is what I play Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite on and some of my other games, but I cannot play that game on my faster gaming monitors. It is impossible. I said screw it because my muscle memory is tied to my TV. That is just how drastic. Even if you're going from either something that's decent to something much better, most of you in this room, if you guys aren't familiar with gaming, would have a very hard time trying to adapt from 60 hertz, 1 millisecond, going to something that's maybe 244 or 240 hertz, and then that's 1 millisecond. It is night and day. I kid you not, especially for a fighting game. You may not see if you like to camp out in, modern warfare or something, but you start pressing on those buttons and you start doing those combos, and your timing is dependent upon what you're pressing on, what you're pressing on. Mystery Coder says here, and that's correct. That doesn't include the additional delay from the frame being rendered on the screen. Again, if all of this is new to you guys, I highly suggest you either subscribe to this channel or you go check out Linus Tech Tips or check out some PC. Forget your retro gaming. Put down your retro gaming for just a few minutes. Go log on to not retro. I'm sorry. Go log on to Jay's 2 Cents, Bitwit, or one of the other PC channels that cover this very basic stuff. This is everything that I'm telling you is very basic technology. And I'm surprised, or I don't know of anybody in the retro gaming Arcade1up community that's actually pointed this out, because either you knew or tried to hide this from the community, or you just didn't know. And that's kind of sad. You should know things like this when you're dealing with emulation. Yeah, my other TV, as I was saying earlier, had 60 hertz, but it was a 1 millisecond plasma TV. Fun fact: 17 milliseconds is the lowest you can pull for input, and there are other fighter cabinets. Yeah, so yeah, 17 milliseconds is not good, and that's not even factoring in the internet lag or the internet delay. Which, I mean, obviously, there's probably a something that could also be looked at, but also keep in mind too. For me, unfortunately, I won't trust anybody else's test other than mine, because when I got my NBA Jam cabinet back in 2020, I'm sorry, from Arcade1up, um, John D said, "Hey, it's perfect. You shouldn't talk about it until you buy it. Yada yada yada." He said all these things in the group. Like, don't say it. And I was like, okay, all right. So I got it, and a few hours after I hooked it up, I called up the Super Game Room dudes. You guys know who they are: P Does, Nostalgia, Michael B, and Detroit Love. And I said, hey, can you guys help me do a test? And I was like, okay, Nostalgia, you shoot the ball, but tell me when you do it, because I was trying to test the button timing. But anyway, you guys know that's when we first saw that desync. And then, a few nights later, there was some, more talk about it. But remember, that cab I was told was perfect, or don't talk about it until you buy it. And so that was the last Arcade1up cabinet I bought. And, it just really occurs to me, or do we have any other tech guys who understand PC knowledge that actually look at all of these things that are here? because there's no way in hell you can look at that monitor and say and not have some questions about that 14 millisecond response time on this DV monitor. There's just no way. There's no way you couldn't be concerned about that, and you don't even have anything in your house. Even if, like I said, even if you went and bought an open box, whatever, at Best Buy or Target, you don't have something in your house that's 14 milliseconds. And darn sure you're not going to play a fighting game on it. NBA Jam would be one of the better ones for input, specifically because CM writing it. MVC2 is a different dev, definitely. Damien, deal with it. Thanks for commenting. Sorry I missed this earlier. I'm thinking they will have to go with a different monitor, even though they said this was a early yeah, and see, that's another thing that concerns me too, because I personally believe that if a pre-order is to be done or a sale, then people should get or see what they're getting first before a pre-production unit. So I get it. Like, so all the reviews that I've seen, and knowing the fact that it's a pre-production unit, I really take it with a grain of salt. I mean, I see it and say, okay, what I would like to see and what they should do, and this is what they should have done with NBA Jam and some of the other cabinets they've had problems with, and then also especially Dragon's Lair. Before pre-orders go live, do a live video, show the actual sold product in its true form, as how it would be as if you would get it, not show pre-production units and say, hey, this is what you're pre-ordering, this is what you're getting. Hey, if that was the case, we would have known, or people would have known, if Dragon's Lair was delayed. Well, actually, the audio and the video aren't really delayed. That's in a whole nother story. It's not lag input. It's, well, kind of, sort of. That's a whole nother beast. But at any rate, you would have known what the product was when you're actually getting it. Unfortunately, we're stuck in a situation where you pre-order it, you get it, and then the first person who can run and post a video is your commercial or of the actual representation of the product. And personally, I'm a huge advocate for consumers in terms of just transparency. Now, if they came out and say, hey guys, sorry, this is the best we can do, the Dragon's Lair audio is off, okay, cool, then you all would have been aware about it, and then, like, hey, this is what you're getting. Same thing with Marvel versus Capcom 2. Obviously, it's a pre-production unit, it's too early to call, but in fairness to everybody, before pre-orders go live, show the actual finished working product in its entirety, start from finish. Let's see all the endings, not like what I heard about Killer Instinct, that the game didn't even have endings, for the characters. Like, why is that even questionable? I mean, that's embarrassing. That shouldn't even happen, where you order a game and buy a game and it doesn't have endings, and they have to patch it later. I mean, that's just inexcusable. But yeah, no, my TV is a QN98 120 hertz. Yeah, exactly. Bought it specifically for the low response time. Yeah, you don't go out and buy these new TVs and these monitors for you guys are feeling. I mean, can I get I want to see if there's any hands of anybody. Does anybody here ever heard of this before? I really hope it's not your first time ever hearing about millisecond response time. I hope it's not, especially if you're a gamer. If you're just playing, like I said, if you're just playing Paperboy or Double Dragon, beat 'em ups, or The Simpsons, is not really going to matter, too much. In terms of, I mean, it's there. It's just not even noticeable. It's like, who cares? But you can't do that of a game of this caliber, especially fighting games. It just won't work. But that's what happened to me back in 2011. So that's why I was just like, I was turned off from a lot of tournaments, because people weren't even using hardware technology on my level. I was like, well, my buddy was telling me, if I told you the guy's name, you guys would probably know who he is. But he was just like, yeah, Keo, this is what they use in tournaments. I was like, well, I mean, that's not acceptable. I said the game was meant to be played at either 0 or 1 millisecond, not played at 10 milliseconds, not played at 5, not play at 4. Yeah, exactly. It's the simplest way. Again, but if you guys have never heard of millisecond response time, uh, for those of you just pure retro junkies and you're not familiar with computers, trust me, there's tons of videos on it out there. But yeah, that's the simplest way to let's see, mystery code. I'm not sure how accurate this is, but I've had pros tell me ROMs have 1 frame of lag. Let's see here. Arcade1up has had many problems with the quality of their monitor. I don't see how the lag issue will be solved with an LCD. Even most advertised 1 millisecond TVs aren't really 1 millisecond. That could be true. That's definitely true. But that's one from 14 to 20, and then some of these monitors here, again, not the one they're using, but I've looked at some of these specs from all these other monitors of this type, and it scared me when I saw one monitor say 100 milliseconds. Yeah, remember, emulation is not perfect. What's another good example? Oh, I have a great story for you guys. So I was talking to one of my buddies, level one online, and I had him pull up two of my favorite games, two of my favorite PlayStation games, because the Mister can now emulate PlayStation One. Was Future Cop LAPD and Fantastic Four. And I hear from everybody that the Mister has perfect emulation. And I think up until the PlayStation emulation, remember the Mister could only emulate ROM games, like or I would say cartridge based games like your Nintendo. I'm not sure if it does SNES, but like your Genesis or Sega Mega, not Sega, yeah, your Sega Mega Drive games, basically small stuff. It's never emulated laser disc read games. And the other thing I was looking for was, would certain games have the additional sound, because Future Cop LAPD, and I've mentioned this before, one of my PlayStation games, one of my favorites, the boss level, he doesn't have certain sounds. Like he trash talks you while you're playing against him. That doesn't happen on the Pi, and I don't think that happens on PC as well. However, the Mister ran it correctly. Now, the other thing the Mister did was, it also, just like the Pi, it ran uh, Future Cop LAPD and Fantastic Four more fluidly, and it also loaded a lot faster, which gave me confirmation, because I heard people say, hey, the Mister emulates everything perfect just like the original hardware. However, it's still reading digitized device. It doesn't have that laser, so it's not going to emulate the laser read speed of the original PlayStation. So that was confirmation for me, because I thought, like, man, this thing is going to be exactly the same, but I could tell that it loads a little bit faster. But yeah, emulation is tricky. And also, keep in mind too, the technology that we have is much better than what they put in the arcades. So there's no way in hell you're going to get perfect emulation when, let's say, I don't know what the specs were like for Killer Instinct on the original hard drive. It could have been 1000 RPM, for example. I don't know. But you have M.2 drives that run at 3400 megabytes and 7000 megabytes. Just the SSD power alone will load the game faster than it would even the arcade. In fact, I was playing the Xbox with my nephews. We were playing Gears of War, which is one of my favorite Xbox games. He has the Series X, or the Xbox Series X, and I had the regular Xbox One, and he was sitting in the lobby waiting for the game to start about 30 seconds before me. And so, just to have that understanding about emulation, even if you're playing the same game, you're running it on different hardware, you're going to have different results. So that's just something else to keep in mind too. Yeah, upscale is not always good. That's why a lot of people were hoping that the Raspberry Pi in general would run at 4K. And we're like, we found that out because I have that video when I first, well, it was one of the guys on the Supreme team talking to somebody with the Redream team. And that's when we found it out, like back in late 2019. And so when I downscaled the overall resolution on the Pi and got the true game speed for Marvel vs. Capcom 2, that was a huge deal back then, because we kept saying, well, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 can't run on the Pi. But it's a video issue. It's a video scaling issue. we were making the Pi, even on the Pi 3B Plus, overwork itself because it was doing the job of emulating the game, and then plus using those additional resources to upscale the resolution when we should have just been letting the TV do it. And that's another thing too. The Dreamcast, I'm not sure how in comparison. Now, I was told back in the day when I had my buddies, you know, when the Dreamcast first came out, that the Dreamcast version did have perfect emulation compared to the arcade version because they would bounce back and forth between the arcade and then, you know, leave the arcade, go home, play Dreamcast, and come back and leave Dreamcast and play Marvel versus Capcom 2. So the emulation as far as Dreamcast, as far as I know, has been on point. Now, it's not a perfect port because if you guys have watched my videos, or if you watch any of the other Marvel versus Capcom 2 gameplay, you'll notice the characters are in different positions. And so that's one giveaway to know that whether if you're playing PlayStation 2 or Xbox, or if you're on Dreamcast, like Shumagorath in the arcade is in one place versus Psylocke and some of the other characters. They're all in, some of them are in different positions. And that's how you'll know if you're looking at the character select screen, if it's a console versus an arcade version. As of now, 2022, what is the best way to emulate MVC2? I bought this back in 2009. I have it on Xbox. I have Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on Xbox. I personally don't have a problem with it. I don't know if there's a comparison video between the two, but I've played it on Xbox and Xbox 360, and I like the Xbox 360 version. Yeah, they're not using the Dreamcast version. It won't have any of the training lobbies, anything like that. So just kind of reading the chat here. Chuck Wilson says console kits said it's the exact same hardware running the cab as the Street Fighter Yoga edition, just $109 more for the MVC2 game included. We don't know that. At least I don't know. It's the same exact hardware running cab for the. Well, that could be true. Maybe he knows something as far as the hardware, but they'll have some adjustments to be made. I mean, Street Fighter is not as fast as Marvel vs. Capcom 2, so there's a huge, yeah. I mean, Street Fighter is not hard to emulate. Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, none of the games that Arcade1up has released, in my opinion, have been very difficult to emulate. Maybe I'm trying to think. They did release one game, not Ridge Racer. I'm trying to think. What was the hardest game that they could have emulated? You know, on their hardware. But in any regard, this is the hardest game possible to run in any single board computer format. So we'll see. Yeah, the monitor is BS, and you know I get it. You know that I here. You know what? Let me pause this video. I want you guys to see. This is the video here, right? That's me playing Marvel, and I have this on my other video too. I just want to pull something up really quickly. I just hope I don't see somebody on a chat or video saying, "Well, this is the latest and greatest technology that they have." And if you haven't noticed or even addressed it or even mentioned that this monitor is a problem for fighting games in general, that's another concern. All right, let me see. This is nope. All right, I'm gonna switch over. I'm gonna show you guys something really quick. I don't think. Let me see if I can do split screen with this. You guys can't really see it. Crap. All right, so obviously that's me at the arcade. Look at the position of Shumagorath right there next to Hulk. All right, you see it there. You see Psylocke there at the very top, and then of course let's move on down to I think those are the only two noticeable ones. Oh, where's Rogue? Where's Rogue? She needs to be on here somewhere. All right, you also see Rogue at the top next to Psylocke. Okay, so here's a picture of this is how you know this is the genuine arcade right here. So this is the genuine arcade. I can look at it and tell because of the position of the characters. Now let's go ahead and find another image. We'll just find something else. All right, here's a perfect one right here. You know what? I don't think let's not play this video. Let's go ahead and pull up. That's the same one there. Let's see. This a video? Yeah, it's a video here. All right, I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but you can see this here. I can tell this is the Xbox 360 version because you can see Rogue is right here. There's Psylocke. There's Shumagorath and whatnot. So they are using the Arcade1up. They are using the official ROM because you can tell by the position of characters. Now, the Dreamcast version, I posted all these pictures. There's a Dreamcast version, and also the PlayStation 2 version. You can check out the photos on my previous video. I have them there. Yeah, that's an arcade version. Let's pull up Marvel vs. Capcom 2 PlayStation. Just want to pull up a photo here so you guys see the difference. Let me bounce back over here so you guys can see that for comparison really quickly. Let's see here. Does it run and play good on Fightcade 2? I honestly don't know because I don't play much Fightcade. I would, in order for me to do an accurate test, we would need to have Fightcade, Xbox 360, and arcade version all running side by side, and have a machine that actually calculates frame rate. That's the way I like to do my tests. That's the way I would like to do it. None of the speculation stuff. All right. But that's the only way to truly know. Now, as far as me playing it at the arcade and then going to Xbox 360, I've never had a problem with that. I usually don't go to bed till 3 a.m., so it doesn't matter. Yeah, I usually don't go to 3 a.m. I do a lot of my research during the midday and do some other things, so I figured I'd just jump on. Yeah, now if Arcade1up is using Android for emulation, that's lower on resources. I think it might run the game better. The latest board, Mystery Cool, I have a single ridge racer. But yeah, I think this would be. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I totally forgot. Killer Instinct is much more harder to emulate than Marvel vs. Capcom, just in terms of it's their first CHD based game. Sorry about that. Yeah, Killer Instinct is, and we know how atrocious that was as well. I can't believe it went past reviews for not even having endings, which is something that has nothing to do with millisecond response time or hardware. All right, but let me find a photo really quick of can't believe how hard it is to find an image of Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Was it on PlayStation? Yeah, it was on PlayStation 2. Okay. All right, so here's another photo here. This is. I'm gonna switch back. This is from PlayStation 2. This is the character position list of Marvel vs. Capcom 2. You have Doctor Doom is here, then you have Rogue down here. So before Rogue was up here, now you have Shumagorath, and now you have Psylocke down here. So that is how you would know if you have a console version. So even the Dreamcast port looks like this. It doesn't look like the actual arcade. So it's good to know, just food for thought for those of you who have never actually maybe noticed that. But all in all, I'm gonna get it. I'll probably break it down and do a few other things. So I will keep you guys posted in terms of what I may do here. And again, uh, I may put it in, get another Micro Center cab for 279, put it in there with all the controls and everything, upgrade it. But we'll have to wait and see, but there's going to be some adjustment. But hopefully we get an actual review of the finished product prior to them releasing pre-orders. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm really glad that they were able to get the licensing and move forward with something like this. But it wouldn't have been a deal breaker because, you know, I'm not somebody who had, you know, FOMO in 2009. I mean, you guys could have got this on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in 2009. I mean, I got this on several different Xboxes. If you guys want one, I do sell them. And people still play online with Xbox 360. And those games are in high definition, and they also have a training lobby and has achievements. So you get everything that you want on that. But it was also cool to see some of the guys are still playing in tournaments at Evo, you know, in the hotel rooms and on CRT monitors. I think they're still using the Dreamcast port or game. There is no Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on MAME as far as I know. OG Xbox, the emulation I thought sucked on that. I can't remember which one it was that didn't have two players. I can't remember if it was PlayStation version or Xbox that didn't have two players for Marvel vs. Capcom 2, or it had some weird funky thing going on. But yeah, MVC2 is only emulated with Naomi and Dreamcast, so it's definitely not main, but it runs really great with Redream. In fact, if I had it loaded right now, because I think my stuff is still transferring, I would have played it. In fact, let me pull up. Let me do kiodiekin Marvel vs. Capcom 2. See if I can pull it up. No. I think this is it here. I'm not sure how much gameplay I have on this video. See, I don't even have the characters unlocked on this one. Let me turn this off. Absolutely not. Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and Infinite, no. Because remember, those were made for next-gen consoles. So this was, I don't remember the actual date on this. Yeah, so this was just a little, oh, I'm sorry, you guys can't even see it, my bad. So this is just a little footage of me playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on Raspberry Pi 4 using the Sega Redream emulator, and the date on this would have been January 8th, 2020. So we had a few enhancements made. So this would have been at the best, like one of the first showcasings and the best emulation possible at that time. Now I have a new RetroPie image now, a new RetroPie base, so I will check it out as soon as the ROMs finish transferring. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they could still downgrade the GFX, run it on a weaker hardware if it's not native support, and then of course run it at a resolution. So even if they lower the resolution to 640 by 480, they could still, you know, run it decently. Yeah, and again, this is on a Raspberry Pi 4. This was video was done 2 years ago. Yeah, you'll still get, you know, your decent animations. I don't, you know, see any lag. In fact, I think I got all the way up to about 200 frames per second. But when you do the hyper crossover combo, that's when you would notice an issue with the game. Guess I'll just speed it up here. I think I have a little bit more footage. I'm not sure. All right, so you guys can see the frame rate counter, but keep in mind, also too, you can't trust the frame rate counter if you're using a capture card or some of these games, because originally when see, there's some slowdown time there on the Pi 4, because initially the game was still registering at about 60 frames per second, but there was a lot of slowdown time when I did my first test, and I couldn't figure out why, but I found out I think a lot of it had to do with the capture card. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad there. Okay, that's the computer doing the air combo on me. No delays from cable. Mr. Kodar, good night. You have a good night. Thanks for all you do. All right, I'm going back to binging bug bang theory. Cool that you're looking beyond what they've discussed with input, though I personally blame the lag they're seeing on the way they process inputs. Yep, that was on Marvel vs. Capcom 2 a few years ago. All right, guys. So you guys have a good night. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. Make sure you guys share. I like to give information like this. I don't take anything as face value from anybody. I like to run my own tests. Even when I get things from devs or any other people in the community, I perform my own tests because I'm not somebody that's just a bump on the law that just wants to spout and regurgitate the same information like everybody else. But these are the things that we should be discussing and talking about. Because again, if this isn't something that you've known about or has been discussed, there's a problem somewhere. Because how can you give accurate reviews if you're not familiar with the technology when somebody is claiming like, yeah, it's going to run great? These are things that you should know. And this is going to be a problem for gamers who, well, hopefully it's not. I'm sorry, that there's no delay there because they won't be able to adjust as far as that millisecond response time. That's really crucial. Yeah, game. I had questions, Damien, deal with it because when I did my first 1080p video, streaming on the Pi 4, I had it, I was recording from my phone and everything, and it was fine. And then I said, okay, well, let me go ahead and screen capture this. I want to, make my presentation look nice and everything. And then when I did it, it was laggy. And then, you can watch the video. There's a lot of comments on there saying, hey, your emulation looks bad. This isn't accurate. And I was trying to figure out like, what the heck is going on? Like I recorded it perfectly, but it's not playing right. And so come to find out the only thing that I changed at that time was inserting into my Elgato capture card. Yeah, so here, this is the first video, September 6th, 2019, that I did a video on Marvel vs. Capcom running on the Pi 4. It'll run fine. It'll look fine and stuff in the menus, but and you can see Rogue is down here at the bottom, and she should be somewhere here at the top. She should be an unlockable character. So that's how you know the Dreamcast isn't a perfect port of the game either. See, looks great, right? No, but I think it was lagging here in certain ports too. See, you can see it's a little choppy. This was several months before the other video. But all right, you guys all have a good night. I will catch you later. I'll give you some more additional information. And again, thank you guys for joining. Peace out. Bye-bye. Overall, I'm happy to say that I'm pleased with the recast emulator being. Yeah, this wasn't too shabby 3 years ago. Man, that's pretty good stuff. Not too bad at all. Not too bad. All right. Good night, guys.